Are we filming? Yes, we are. Welcome to another video. This is a review of sorts. This is a very early one. It's not a filofax. It was made by, let me just zoom in and show you, Irving Pitt, the Irving Pitt Manufacturing Company in Kansas City. And there's a patent here, December the 20th, 1904, and there's another one, January the 14th, 1908, and it's a loose leaf binder. Very, very similar to a filofax, if I can just zoom out. So very, very similar to a filofax, or indeed the LaFax that kind of started it off, at least for LaFax, back in 1910, but this predates LaFax by a few years. Irving Pitt, amongst other things, made binders, notebooks, ring binders, that sort of thing. I was looking at this very, very briefly. Very briefly, and I found a record of a patent infringement case between Irving Pitt and Twinlock, and I've covered Twinlock in the past. I may talk about patent infringements at some point, but not in this video. And I don't have much knowledge about patents, but it is something that perhaps was, going on, and it certainly was in this particular case. So let's have a look at this binder. I think we need to start with a date, because I was really surprised at this. So let's just assuming the notes, the pages are contemporary with the binder, and they do look as if they are. They're all in pencil, and there's a date here, Wednesday, August the 23rd, 1922, and there are others. Let's turn the page, August the 14th, 1922. Now, I don't know, I mean, these could have been written in 1962, who knows, but let's take them at face value. These notes are over 100 years old. And let's assume that this binder is also over 100 years old. If that is the case, then this binder of over 100 I own is the oldest one I have ever owned. It's in a bit of a state. I believe it's made of leather cloth, but I can't be sure. But you can see it needs it's falling apart. But interestingly, if you look at the corners here, you can see several layers of material. And this is very, very similar to the modern manufacturing process of the filofax brand themselves, where when the corners wear, you get, instead of a thick layer of leather, you get this sort of cheaper construction method where you've got a thin layer of something or other, a very thin layer of leather, sandwiching some layers of what typically appears to be some kind of cardboard, and I suppose that means that this is like a budget, a cost-effective alternative to something that was made in this is I'm pretty sure that this is a budget notebook. It was again, we have to assume that these are. I like to assume that these are contemporary. It was owned by S.B. Overton, probably a guy. Sigma Chi, Bethlehem, Lehigh University. So he's obviously quite proud of his academic roots, as it were. And these notes are notes consistent with the oil refining business. So very, very interesting. This guy, unless he's in the Guinness Book of Records, is no longer with us. But it is interesting. It is interesting, and I sometimes ask myself why this kind of thing ends up in the public domain, allowing someone like myself, a collector, an enthusiast like myself, to inquire such a personal set of notes for one's own collection. Got a set of binders which are intact. They're just a lovely thing, aren't they? Let's measure the ring size, because this is very, very small. It is 8mm, almost exactly 8mm. But there is a fly in the ointment. But not necessarily a fly in the ointment, but it's something to be aware of. So I have a standard filofax here. Let's just compare the rings, because you will notice that, let's put them together like that, the rings are not compatible with the modern format. And when I say modern format, I don't necessarily mean today's format, because this ring spacing has been standard since, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, 1910, when Flatability started these binders. I know that there are other binders with this ring specification, and it's an interesting specification because you have the 19mm between each ring, and then you have a 38mm gap between the third and fourth ring, which means that these follow the same format, i.e. missing one. And I can demonstrate that because let's just take a sheet from my currently unused Guildford Mini Extra Slim, and you can see that this format is a very useful format if you're using this size and mini size. You know, there's a consistent 19mm gap between the rings, and so you could insert a mini sized piece of paper into this binder, but you can't do that if you're using the personal size that we know and love. It's just not possible. So that, I wonder, is a bit of an advantage, perhaps a serendipitous advantage, but it's an advantage nevertheless. So we have the let's zoom in again. We have the Irvin Pitt Manufacturing Company in Kansas City using this format, but also we have other binders that are using this format. This is stamped Associated Electrical Industries, AEL, which I believe started in America, but then they had branches or a manufacturing base at Trafford Park in here in England, on a huge scale. So I picked this up some time ago, and you can see that. Well, let me, rather than say you can see, let's just have a look. You can see that the rings are identical, the ring spacings. So how would I use this if I was going to use this? Well, it could be used as a notebook. I'm not going to transition to a new ring spacing standard, but it'd be fun to clean this up and use it. Maybe let me know what you think I should do with this. Oh, I love the way these pages have got like a red edge to them. Quite nice. I like that. But there are other things that mystify me, and that is if we assume that these dashboards, which appear to be made of some sort of plastic, if we assume that this dashboard is over 100 years old, what I want to know is, why is it that this dashboard can survive? There doesn't seem to be any sign of brittle, the plastic going brittle. So I just wonder whether the recipe has changed, i.e. however they made these plastic dividers, they didn't mix it with some sort of plasticizer, which tends to evaporate over time, and that's why modern plastics do go brittle in the form of dashboards, for instance. But that's very interesting. I love those dashboards. I love these dividers. I love this paper. I love the fact that it is rounded there and rounded there. Might have been cheap, might have been expensive, I don't know. But certainly it's a lot smaller. It's a lot smaller than a standard filofax insert. So here we go. This is a standard filofax insert, not one of my custom sizes. And you can see that it's much taller, and it is just a little bit wider by about half a centimetre or so. But certainly a useful size, and this size is more pocketable than this size. If you're, say, at university and a jacket pocket, this probably fits the bill more than this. I wonder whether that was the reasoning behind it. Who knows? Back in the day, I know from what I've been reading today, Irving Pitt made a lot of like notebooks, particularly student notebooks. So I wonder whether that meant that this size carried favour with the designers. Interesting. Another thing that's interesting is you'll notice that if I zoom in again, there's a bit of corrosion here, quite a lot of corrosion, and I don't know whether they've fallen off or whether they're completely missing. But the normal release mechanism for these rings isn't there. But these let me just zoom out again. So these mechanisms operate independently, top three and bottom three, which is how early filofaxes used to be. And I am really shocked at how good, how nice and smooth. Notwithstanding you can't open them with your thumbs, but you can certainly do that with your fingers, and it's softer and smoother and feels, frankly, much nicer than a modern binder, which is click clack and enough to wake the dead in a quiet library. And I just wonder whether that was part of the design specification, because if these were going to be used at university or student notebooks in a busy office and that, I wonder whether the art of making nice, smooth, quiet ring binder mechanisms has been lost in the desperate pursuit of ever cheaper ring mechanisms. But very nice. Listen to this. Isn't that beautiful? And they're solid. There is a slight there's a slight mismatch here, probably a crushing thing. I might be able to sort that out, but don't want to risk it. All the others are nice. And there's another thing I've noticed. Look at this. Just look at how well machined these are. They're very, very deep, acute angles, very nice. And this is also something that is missing with mainstream ring mechanisms, because if you look closely at a ring mechanism from a well-known brand, it's a bit of a mess. It's just a bit of a mess. It's not precision cut, whereas these are deep and they're precise and they're precision cut, and that is why you don't get so many misalignment problems. And these are 100 years old. They're 100 years old. I don't know how much these have been used in anger. Probably not 100 years, maybe 10 years perhaps, and then it was put in an attic or a cellar, what do they call them in America? They don't call them cellars. Anyway, but it's just a well engineered. It's an economy model, because it's not leather. It's kind of leather cloth. But good rings. I love the fact that you can open the rings independently. You know, I know that's probably more expensive, but to be honest, I really like that idea. I really like that idea. But hey ho. One thing that I would say. Oh, we've have we done a measurement of the size? Well, let's just sort that out now, because you can freeze frame. Okay. 10 centimeters, and then the other way it is 157 millimeters. Okay. Sorry, I'm only doing new money. But one thing that I'm gonna end with a little bit of philosophy, because I think this is, it's interesting. But when I acquire this sort of thing, where people have written notes, I find it difficult to decipher the notes. A lot of calculations here. These are all notes associated with the oil refining business 100 years ago. 100 years ago. Okay, let's have a look at this. And this is my frustration, because I'd love to read this. To remove about one something gets, I don't know what that is, something oil at the something for something woods something be something. Well, oh, that's probably says reliable. So, it's not. There's no requirement for the person that wrote this 100 years ago to make it legible for others. But I just think it's a shame that, I have often said this about my parents. I cannot decipher what they're writing. When my mother sends me a birthday card or a Christmas card, I have to go not just line by line, but word by word to try and decipher what she's saying, in the same way as an Egyptologist would try and decipher hieroglyphics written on the inner wall of a tomb inside a pyramid. And so, I struggle with that. I don't know whether it's me or whether other people would struggle with this, but I find it really frustrating that writing is verging on indecipherable, without spending a huge amount of time looking at word by word, letter by letter, But I'll leave it there, because I've been going with 20 minutes. But it's another acquisition. Look at that. I think that's probably a It's probably a cigarette burn. No, it's too old to tell. It smells like it's 100 years old. But clean. Let me know actually what you think I should do to this. I'm curious as to if there are any expert leather cleaners, or not necessarily restorers, but stabilizers, to make this something that I could actually use as a notebook. I think it has the right credentials to use it, to just chuck in my bag or something, and that's actually something that I'm going to talk about soon. I'm going to be trying a new experiment for the summer, or the spring, depending on how long it lasts. But I'm really pleased with this. I love the fact that I like to think that this is a binder that's 100 years old, and the notes where they're in are 100 years old. Look out in the future for a paper test. I want to see how this ostensibly 100-year-old paper survives with ink tests, ink and pen tests. That's going to be quite interesting. But I'm gonna leave that with you because it is I'm very excited, and I feel privileged to own these things that have character. It's nice to get something that's pristine and untouched, but for me, I really like binders that, or personal organisers, whatever, that have some history, maybe some character, and this one has plenty of that. Thanks very much for watching. I'll leave. I'm trying to leave some reviews in the end cards for each of these videos, but they're probably on your screen now. So thanks very much for watching. Until next video, goodbye.